Okay. Um, Hello, everyone. Good afternoon to all of you. I welcome all of you to yet another React Native meetup at GeekyAnts. And this time, it's going to be a little different. It's going to have an AI in it, just like everything else nowadays. The theme for this meetup is impact of AI on React Native development. I'll introduce myself. I am Neeraj Sinha. I'm working as an associate engineering manager at GeekyAnts, and I'll be your host for today. If you need Wi-Fi, you can check out the details. The Wi-Fi name is GeekyAnts Guest. Password is guest at the rate 1234. Uh, let's just go through the code of conduct. Do not use any hate speech and any inappropriate comments. Keep it light, be respectful, and refrain from any strong words. This is a space for growth and learning. Promote that. Get to know your fellow attendees and speakers and network among yourself. And on, on that note, I again welcome all of you and I welcome to our stage our very own CTO, Saurabh Sahu, to deliver the keynote speech. Thank you.
Fine. Sorry. Okay. How are you all today? Great. All right. Just a moment. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us on a Saturday evening. And I am very delighted to welcome you all to the React Native and AI meetup. As we all know, React Native is an open source framework for building mobile application using JavaScript and React. The agenda of today is going to be going through the impact of AI on React Native development. That's me. I'm Saurabh, CTO at GeekyAnts, and I'm your keynote speaker of the day. Let's quickly look at what's going on new in React Native. Recently, in this year, January, React Native version 0.71 was launched. Some of the key features that I really liked about the React Native latest version is the default TypeScript support. That whenever you init a new React Native project, you get the TS config configured already, and you don't need to install at the rate types React Native dependency. That saves a lot of time as a developers. It has also simplified the layouts with flexbox gaps. So for building complex UI pages, there are props like column gap, row gap. All those gaps can help people build great UI easily. And a new opt-in implementation of pointer events such as on pointer over out. These events can help you building in, say, a gaming application where you need to check if someone is hovering on a view or a div. Then you can use these events. Helps a lot in building mobile gaming sort of application in React Native, which you need to enable as a extra feature. It's not on by default. And this is the last feature which I really like about is the in React Native dev tool we have got now inspect element feature, which is just like Chrome inspect element, which was not there previously, and now we can inspect like a web developer and see how the alignment of the divs and everything is there in React Native. And there has been some improvement in the default Helms engine, which was made default in the previous version. This is my opinion. Like I feel that there is a shift in React Native world towards the Expo, as the Expo community is growing and all the support with EAS build, the updates and the easy submit to App Store and Play Store is helping a lot to the developers and saves their lot of time. And I have seen that Expo router version was recently launched, which is just like a file-based routing in which is there in Next.js. So that's also quite good to see. But there is a downside as well that you get tied up to the Expo environment, which sometimes many developers don't like it. But as the community is growing, I feel that Expo is, every feature is already there and it can help the developers. Few of the updates at GeekyAnts, what's happening in React Native world at GeekyAnts. So we have built GlueStack UI, which is the next version of native base version 3. So why we built this is it has more performance enhancements compared to the previous version, and also we felt that there were few components which developers didn't need to install everything with native base, which you can incrementally opt in GlueStack UI. So that's a version going on, and we have also built a a style library named dank.style, which is inspired by Radix design system. So it is also a CSS in JS library. The what what makes it stand out with other library is that the styling calculation is done during the compile time, not during the runtime. So that is makes it a very high performant style library compared to style components or any component styling component out there. So you can check it out. It's live on Dank Style is the website. Check it out. You can have a look at that. Coming back to the agenda of today, these are some of the pointers that I could think of, how AI can actually enhance our React Native development. The first point, I felt that it can help hugely in automating our testing processes. Like while in the development, we can already debug we can find out the issues in advance while you are developing. That can be hugely boosted up for the automation testers. Then NLP, natural language processing, can also help a lot in different many areas of the application. For example, say big basket application, you can directly write in a very human language words way like my ketchup is over, and the app can, those voice bot NLP processing can get you the suggestion of the items into it and order it. Image and video processing can also be hugely boosted up by AI, inclusion of AI in your React Native application. Say you can take a photo of this mic and post it on an app, and the processing can be done very easily through AI, and you get the results of it. So these are some of the areas. I'm pretty sure that there are many more areas which it is going to impact and which we will see as we progress through the meetup. Moving on, few of the latest AI development tools that I have been exploring and I really like about. The first one is the Code GPT. It's a VS Code plugin which you can install in your code editor, and you need to just configure a API token from ChatGPT, and you don't need to jump to the browser to ChatGPT and write code. You can select a code. It can help in documenting your code. You can select some part of code and ask AI to document it. It writes a very well documentation, say with the inputs, parameters, and it can also help in writing business logic of your code. So that's some of the use cases that I have been recently using. Try that out, Code GPT. Then Copilot X is something which is by GitHub. It is also going to get lot of enhancements to it, like PR reviews. It can help you find out the issues when you raise a PR, and you can debug that. So that's a great future over there. Cursor is something that I installed today. I was trying it out, and that's again a code editor, which is very fast, and you can ask the AI to write the code for you. So try these out, and I'm pretty sure it is going to save a lot of your time. Moving on, React Native Wizard. This is the community we have. This is a community on LinkedIn named React Native Wizards, and on Twitter React Native Wiz. You can follow that to stay up to dated with what are the talks, what are the meetups we are coming up with. So that will help you being updated to it. Moving on, Vercel plus GeekyAnts. Don't worry, we are not getting acquired by Vercel. So we have actually partnered with Vercel. So what does this partnership bring to GeekyAnts is like we can have lot of support from Vercel, and we can have the demo of the advanced features they are going to add, and it can enhance our own development whole life cycle. So we have been partnering with different companies. Versal is one of them. We have partnered with Hasura as well. Then with GitHub. Even after partnering with GitHub, we are not getting Copilot X for free. We have to pay for it. Jokes aside. So yeah, moving on the agenda of today, we have some great talks lined up from Dewansh Rawat from Udan, Ekaansh Arora from Agora, Joynal Dsouza from League Gaming Private Limited, and our own Saurabh Ganguly. So please enjoy your day. Have a great day, and thank you so much. Back to you, Neeraj.
Thank you, Saurabh, for kicking off the session. And just like to point out a few things which Saurabh mentioned, that Expo is surely going to be the future. I am with you. When I hope everyone, whenever you're starting a new React Native application, you're starting with Expo. At least I am. And I feel AI is finally coming to our life in the full-fledged way, just not like a POC or not like something which we could read about, something which we could actually take advantage of. So let's get this started, should we? I guess that's yes. I'll introduce you to our first speaker, that's Dewansh Rawat. He is a full stack software engineer who likes to sing sometimes, and he'll be speaking about leveraging AI to increase developer productivity. So please put your hands together for Devansh Rawat, and I welcome you to the stage. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here. My name is Devansh. I am a software engineer at Udan. Today, I'll be talking about how we can use, AI dev tools to increase our productivity and making basically our lives easier. So I'll just quickly jump to it. So as mentioned before, the GitHub Copilot is one really good tool for which using which you can generate code in real time. You just have to pass in real your function parameters, or maybe what do you want your function to do, and it generates the code. So there's GitHub Copilot, there's ChatGPT, there's OpenAI Codex, and yeah. So my personal experience using all of these tools has been that it really helps you design and develop things very quickly. The problem, as I see with them, is they might not be 100% correct. They might have some flaws, in which we as developers have to take a look once. So, can I use AI to do my work? AI assisted tools can be used to help developers, and they are very quick, innovative, and intuitive to use. And they are very easy to use, and they can generate our code in real time. But would they be replacing developer jobs, as the question arises? In my personal opinion, no, not in the real time future, anyways. So we are safe for some time at least. And let's try to see a few examples where we use ChatGPT to develop a few apps. Like for example, we'll just go through a quick example where we give a quick prompt to ChatGPT to write a calculator React Native app, and yeah. So is this visible? Awesome. So basically, I give ChatGPT a prompt to write me a React Native application, which functions as a calculator. And in the interest of time, I'm going to skip ahead. Yes. So here we can see ChatGPT comes up not only with the flow that you have to follow as a basic walkthrough of what the structure should look like. It also comes up with the actual code that can be used to inject into an Expo application, and run the React Native app in real time. So what this entails is that I do not have to spend a lot of time on me as a dev. But for example, if you see over here, the handle calculate function isn't given over here, right? It just says perform the necessary calculations here. So I just asked ChatGPT to write me that function too, so that I can just not spend much time thinking about what to do. So here it is, and directly this code can be injected into a React Native application. So it makes life very easy. I literally spent a few minutes asking it the right questions, and here it is. And then I'll also demonstrate how you can inject this into your application. So I just go npx create React Native app and spin up a calculator. It takes some time. And yeah, uh, we start building the app. Uh, Expo takes its own sweet time to run the app, and once it spins up, you'll quickly see it takes a few seconds to come up with the calculator. You can perform basic calculations on it, and it works perfectly fine. Oh, yeah. So the idea over here is that I, as a developer, shouldn't spend time thinking on what to code. I mean, that is essentially one portion of the job that's very essential. But things that are really, standardized, or maybe that can be developed very quickly and we can move ahead quickly, we should ideally spend less time on that and spend more time thinking and innovating on how we can make things more robust and better for us. So this is one example of how you can use ChatGPT to make a React Native application. But apart from that, let's say I, as a backend developer, so I'm a full stack developer too. So now let's say I want to write some APIs. I need something like, let's say I want to create an app where I click an image, or maybe I just select an image from my gallery, and I want to quickly upload that image to S3 and maybe just display it for now. How do I do that? Again, the prompt. Hey ChatGPT, can you help me write a Flask app so that I can upload an image from my React Native application? And ChatGPT helps us do the same. So I just asked this prompt on if it can help me generate a Flask API, and it comes up with all the code base. So I do nothing. I just click copy code over here. Let's say I go up to this folder. I just delete all these files. Yeah. Okay. So I spin up a server.py, dump all the data over here, and ideally this is what the code looks like. It says it throws a protocol exception, client error, and everything looks good. However, I don't think the code is correct over here. So I just tell it that this doesn't seem right, and it comes up with the correct code, like according to how I like it. You need to pass in extra parameters while you're uploading to Boto 3. You need to generate the bucket name and file name and the timeout parameter while getting the pre-signed URL. And I just copy this code base, replace it with this, and now this looks good to me. So it's as simple as that. Writing a Flask API. Let's say even if I didn't know about these errors, I could just run it and come across them. Then tell ChatGPT how to correct it. And now I have to run this system, but I don't know what dependencies need to be installed. I don't know how I can spin them up and deploy them. Right. So I just asked ChatGPT, can you generate a requirements file for the dependencies required? And it would come up with the dependencies that are needed. This is Flask, Boto3, Boto Core. I dump all of them into a requirements.txt file over here, and then to maybe help me run this container in a very easy fashion, I ask it to write a Docker file for this application, so that I can quickly just build it as an image and then run it. So I just ask them, hey, can you write a Docker file? And it comes up with this, which again I just copy, write a Docker file, and that's it. And yeah, that's as simple as that. So just to verify that if it works, I'm just gonna ask it to do this. route and app.route. And Docker build -t. Yes. I just build the Docker image and then I'm just gonna run it. Yes, with this. So the idea over here is I don't spend a lot of time on thinking what I want to write in code. The idea over here is what I want to build. If I wanted so right now what we'll try is once we've uploaded this image to React, once we have uploaded this image to S3, let's ask ChatGPT to maybe use the Amazon recognition client to come up with all the elements that are present in the image and then to display that data in a React Native application. So essentially, if we are able to do that, we'll have an object recognition app without having thought through much and having leveraged ChatGPT. In the system, Docker run, DB, 1000, Docker containers. Awesome, sorry, the Docker file is incorrect over here. So we'll repeat that. Just take a breeze again. Sorry for that. Electricity, containers. Let's see. Let's delete all of them. Let's delete only. So just by having, meanwhile the Docker is spinning up, we'll just quickly also give ChatGPT a prompt to come up with an image selector in React Native app so that we can upload the image through the /upload endpoint over here. So it comes up with this, and I have already built this application. So I'll just quickly spin up the emulator and show how it comes up. Okay, Docker d-p. Okay, so quickly seeing over here, we can see that an image picker has been picked up, right? And we just, like, let's say, even if I just do this, this is a dummy pan card and all, and you get the upload image buttons. You can just click upload image, it would hit the API, you get the response, and then you can quickly render it in your UI. So the idea over here is to use these tools so that we as developers can quickly iterate and move forward and build products in real time. Um, okay, let's try one live example. Can you generate some code to identify images, to identify elements present in an image? Can you write an API actually? A Flask API, let's say. Identify the image and return them in the response. So by just doing this, ideally it should pick an image from S3 and use the Amazon recognition client to perform entity recognition, which can then return this response, the confidence level, and we can use them to render the UI in our application. So yeah, so over here, if you see, it just takes in the file that I've sent in the response, uses Boto3 to recognize the labels that are there, the confidence, and everything is returned in this API. So this way, I don't have to spend a lot of time in thinking on how I need to proceed further, on what I need to, how do I need to make things work in production, even if anything breaks over here. So for example, I think yes, yeah. So if you see over here, uh, when running yarn tests, I get the following error: syntax error, cannot use import statement outside a module. So it just explains to you, like, this is where you're going wrong, this is what you need to do, and this is how you need to proceed further. So everything is broken down in bits and chunks so that we as developers can learn easily, iterate quickly, and move forward. So using ChatGPT can be very helpful. The problem with it can be that you may get stuck into build errors and everything, since it's not always going to come up with responses that are actually right. So you might have to go back and forth with your responses. But yeah, ideally it's going to be very easy, very helpful for developers to be able to use such tools and move forward. Uh, so yep, that's it at my end. Are there any questions? Okay. Thank you so much, guys. Bye bye. I'll just stop sharing.
And I guess AI at the current stage is the best friend and the worst enemy of a developer. And it's greatly explained by Devansh. We have our next speaker I'd like to introduce to all of you. His name is Joynal Dsouza. He is working with React Native for past 1 year, and he has been working on various projects. He has started his developer journey at the college days with Node, React, and Vue.js, and he mentions that after coming to the professional career, he got sucked into mobile development with React Native. He likes to read books, watch movies and TV shows in his spare time, and I would like him to come to the stage and spare some of his time on enlightening us for use of AI for development and debugging of React Native applications. So please put your hands together for Joynal Dsouza. Please welcome you on stage.
So, hello everyone. It's on. Can you hear me? So, my name is Joynal Dsouza. So, I work as a front-end React Native developer at Leaguex Gaming. So, we are a fantasy sports app, and also we are working on blockchain and 3D game development also. So, we are in the process of releasing a 3D game. Okay. So I'm here to talk about use of AI for development and debugging of React Native applications. So Yeah, AI is replacing developers. Is it? I don't know. Okay. So what I think is the creating new applications. I think it's very easy with ChatGPT. So as a front end developer, you only need to write the CSS code. So we should start learning learning CSS properly again. And but I'm not a pessimist about AI replacing us. It's very good. I don't know how well it will take over the old code base, which is very complex. So when the GitHub Copilot comes out, so I want to try that out. How it will affect, like how it will read old code bases to improve it. Okay, so when I started my dev journey, this was the important things which I was taught. So, what makes a code great? So, first and foremost, it should be readable. So, everyone else in the team or other developers should be able to understand your code easily. So, that's why the code documentation is important. But we are very lazy to write documentation nowadays. Always. So also next thing is scalability of the code. Uh, as a JavaScript developers, JavaScript is a single-threaded application. So if your code is if not it is not optimized well enough, then it may block your thread and your apps might get slower. Use of AI for React Native development. Has Dewansh told us how we can leverage AI to build new applications very easily with just prompts. Uh, of course, it can boost our productivity. If I had to spend 5 minutes of my time to build a small checkbox component, uh, checkbox component in React Native is simple enough. It's like 50 lines of code. But to write that 50 lines of code, maybe I have to spend 10 minutes. But with ChatGPT, with just one prompt, you can just create a component. And as I said, back to the first slide, we have tried the CSS code to please our designers and accommodate their changes all the time. Next thing, whenever I see a code, optimization is very important. So before and all, we had to go back after we have written the code. When it is functional, we have to we had to go back and think about how we can optimize a function or something. But with ChatGPT or AI, we can just input our code and let it tell us how can we make our function or code better. So here is an example. So this is a code from our code base. It's very like 2 years old. I asked AI to optimize it. So this so this was the answer it gave it to me. So avoid redundant computation of filter. So filter is, as you know, is O of n big O. So here in this old code, I'm calling filter 3 times on same array. So this is kind of on plus on plus on 3n big O of this function right now. But yeah, and also some ternary of operation optimization. So this is what code it gave it to me. So it's using reduce function to get the code. So this is a working code. I tried it out and it really worked. So, but the problem is sometimes it doesn't give you accurate code. You have to know the basics to write the code well enough or modify it to your advantage. But what I like most is that whatever it gives, the suggestions are right and good. So maybe the code is wrong, but still the suggestions are good and we can implement them. Next is documentation. Documentation earlier we used to write on top of the function whatever, but it was very tedious task, and developers would not do the documentation. But now with AI tools, it's become very easier to write documentations. So currently, I'm using a extension called Mintlify Doc Writer. So you just have to highlight the code. You just need to highlight the code, and it will generate docs for you automatically. So we are asking it to generate docs. So this gives me an basic idea of what this function does. So we don't have to spend writing thinking about what docs we need to write or something. So uh, building new applications is very easy nowadays with uh, ChatGPT, as I said. But in the real world, we are going to going for the legacy code, which was written in React Native 6.0 or 6.4. Uh, so with AI, so there are a lot of optimizations coming up nowadays with the React Native versions, but the old code is still there, and companies don't want to spend much time on updating the applications. But still, we as a developers, we should be using with AI. It's easier to optimize functions and all. So we need to spend some time and update our code. So debugging. So I think most of us spend much time on debugging than coding. So with as you see in the me, so before we used to code for 2 hours and debug for 6 hours. We know what we had written. But with ChatGPT, writing complex code, it's kind of, if you don't understand what it has written, then it becomes very difficult. You have to like again rewrite it, taking as prototype. As I said before, we have to prototype with using ChatGPT, but still the current AI is not that good in giving the correct code. And also, so we had some interns in our team, so we had given them a task before. So first, a simple blog application. There they used ChatGPT, and it was easier for them to get the code because it was new application, and it was they didn't think much of how the code works. So it worked, that it was fine. But when we moved them onto a real project with legacy, like old code, then it become a problem. So they wouldn't understand what the use state or use effect was doing. And so we also have class based components. So nowadays no one uses class based components, right? So they had that problem with it. Like, so whoever is starting out, so it's important for them to learn the basics first, and then only move on to using ChatGPT or whatever AI comes up. Otherwise, in real world, it becomes a problem if you don't understand the code. So these are the challenges which I face. Currently we are using React Native version 6.0.61.5. So it's too old, and the libraries are so we have to use old libraries. Every time if I uh, get asked for a code from ChatGPT, it requires two prompts to get it the right answer. Sometimes that also doesn't happen. So you should be smart enough to understand the code and write the code correctly. And second issue was package manager. We were using React Native animated version 1.0, but when I asked ChatGPT for some code on animation, it gave me the latest version of it. So it doesn't have the old version how to build the application or component of animation. So package manager version mismatch is also a problem. And thirdly, missing code based context. So if I want to write a or ask for a function to a chat GPT, it doesn't know the context of it. So if it understands the context, then the code generation may be 100% perfect. And generating complex applications and debugging is not good at the moment with ChatGPT. And also we have 3000 character limit in ChatGPT 3, and I haven't used ChatGPT 4, but it has promising things. Next, so GitHub Copilot is coming up, and it will have an extension to VS Code. So, uh, I wanted to debug my applications. I'm waiting for it since next week I'll be working on improving or updating our code base to RN70, and with new architecture coming up, uh, I hope your AI helps me to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Joynal. And that was some great insights on how we are debugging and developing the code, and great hands-on experience on why the class components created some problems with AI and the legacy code. I heard somewhere that AI cannot replace developers because the clients would have to explain the requirements very concisely and precisely, and I don't think they would be. So, yep. So, let's stop for a break. Get yourself hydrated. Have some snacks. Have some fruits. Have some coffee, tea, whatever you like. Let's stop for 10 to 20 minutes and let's come back. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you are refreshed, you are hydrated, and ready to learn more. We have our next speaker, Ekaansh Arora. He's quite a regular in these meetups. So, just a quick info about him. He's a passionate developer by day and a subpar artist by night. He's obsessed with developer tools and works on the low code and no code initiative at Agora. He's going to be speaking about interfaces with AI in React Native, the correct and easy way. So please put your hands together for Ekaansh and welcome him on the stage.
Thank you so much. Did everyone have like a good break? Is everyone energized? Awesome. Let's do this. So the title of the talk is interfacing with AI in React Native, and like all things in life, there's usually the easy way and the right way, and you're constantly sort of figuring out like which one do you pick. And if you're like a senior in software engineering, you've probably heard like, oh, it depends. That's not what we're here for today. We're like, why not both? Do it the easy way and like do things correctly. So that's sort of the overarching theme of what I'm going to talk about. Before we dive in, I am Ekaansh, developer at Goa, and I am a TypeScript nerd. So we'll talk a lot of TypeScript things. I also maintain the video UI kits for React Native at Agora, and I make like subpar art. So if you want to find some of those, you can go to Twitter. The slides will be on GitHub as well, and I'll do a demo. Hopefully, live demos are scary, but maybe we'll make them work. So link like code for those will also be on GitHub if you want to take a look. Okay, so why should you care? That's probably the first slide I put when I'm giving a talk. And you're probably wondering if you're building like an AI app. How many of you, like show of hands, how many of you have been dabbling with AI, building like an AI app on like React Native? Otherwise, uh, few hands. Okay, so let's maybe change that. Okay, so the idea is pretty straightforward, right? Like in React Native, at least you have like a button, and you can add an event on press and call your API in the button like function event thing, right? And this seems fairly correct, right? Like, what's the problem? Why am I talking about like interfacing with AI? Like, what's the problem here? Any ideas? Anyone in the audience? Like, is this okay? Is this cool? Maybe I can help.
I guess we should not have any functions defined on the render time. Is that what?
That's correct. That's one problem. But the other idea is that you're exposing your API key in your application bundle, right? And I mean, people would like be quick to assume that, hey, I can just like put it in my environment variables and that's fine. Well, it's not really. And sort of this tweet, which hopefully, if it loads, we'll see, is sort of what motivated me to sort of come here. Let's double check. We have internet. Looks like we do.
If you have the link, just open it from browser.
That's a good question. Let's see. See if that works. Okay, great. So there's this tweet by Cyril who sort of talks about almost half the apps on the App Store are in some way leaking their API credentials, right? And um, this is sort of what I was trying to show in here. Um, Even if you compile down your code, these are usually Swift apps, right? Even if you're compiling your code and like storing it in your info.plist, you can still access, like decompile the source code and access the API string, right? And you might sort of go like, hey, I'll just like encode it in like some way and like store it in some format. You can always do a string search no matter what you're doing. This will exist, and this is a problem. Um, well, you might argue that I can read through like some security documentation on Expo and use some library and do something. I mean, I have another tweet here which doesn't look like it's going to load. So we'll do the old fashioned thing and we'll open it in the browser. So the idea is anything of value that can be hacked will be hacked. It's only a matter of time and motivation. So if there's something in your bundle that you're giving the user access to, it will be hacked. Um, Next tweet is, if you're using OpenAI, chances are this is incredibly valuable, right? Like you're spending thousands of dollars sort of, accessing and building out this AI app at least. That's the idea right now. Maybe these things change in the future. So we've established things of value can be hacked, will be hacked. OpenAI keys are valuable. Um, and again, to sort of argue is, if someone can develop this thing which sort of decrypts an obfuscated, like pixelized string from an image back to the text, surely they can do a string search in your source code. Cool, everyone with me so far? Does anyone disagree? Okay, great. This was the hard part. Now, building and fixing this is the easy part. So the solution to this is fairly trivial. How can you steal what isn't there? And let's sort of go forward. So it's time for the B word. We're going to write a backend. And I love doing this, going to like a front end React Native like meetup and talking about backends. That's my jam. But don't worry, it's going to be fairly straightforward, and we're just going to like write TypeScript. It's going to be super simple. We have about 10 minutes left, so we'll talk through it. It's going to be really trivial. All of any backend devs in the house? Oh, nice. So everyone after this talk should be able to sort of call themselves a full stack or a backend dev. That's the idea. And we'll not just use TypeScript, we'll also use like Create T3 Turbo, which gives you an Expo app. How many of you have used Expo? Awesome. Expo is the only way to write React Native. You can fight me on Twitter. Uh, and sort of the API layer or the backend technology that we're using is called TRPC. How many of you have used TRPC, heard of TRPC? Awesome. So great audience. We'll talk about TRPC. So right now, the code snippet that I showed you, what happens is there's an app and there's OpenAI, and you're sort of calling this API with your prompt and your key. And we talked about how that's bad, right? So the solution is sort of plopping a backend in the middle, which has your key and sort of signs the request. So your app only gives the prompt to the backend. It adds the key and sends it across to whatever service that you want. In this way, you've sort of removed the attack vector from the app to the backend. That's fair. But your app source code is accessible, or at least your compiled app is accessible to millions of users. If you do things right, your backend shouldn't be accessible to anyone. So this is a much better way of doing things, in my opinion, much secure. So enough talk. Let's maybe jump to the code. If you want to start out, there's a fairly simple way to scaffold a Create T3 Turbo app. And that's what that looks like. You can find it in the slides later. But I will show you what that looks like now. All right, so we have a demo folder, and the only two things we sort of care about is this index, which is just bog standard Expo application, nothing special about it. And there's this special file, which I'll sort of describe and talk about. So let's see what's happening right now, okay? Let's bring up our simulator, make sure that looks right, cool. So I'm using like an OpenAI chat completion API right now, so you can do something like what the answer to the universe is, and with any luck, it should return, something. What that is things that AI people will figure out. But cool, so that works. We've used sort of the snippet that I showed you before. There's some button which has some function, and this function sort of does a fetch request. Does that make sense? Does everyone understand? All good? Awesome. Then we're setting some state to sort of show this on the screen. That's fairly standard React Native stuff. Now the idea is, once you've set up Create Turbo app, this gives you something called a TRPC router. You can have keys in the router. These are like functions. So it's like defining a function here, which exists in your backend, and calling this function over here, which exists in your front end. So there's a sort of API that's sort of abstracted away for you. And what we can do is we can describe what input this function takes. So let's say this will accept something called a prompt, and it will be of a type string. And instead of just returning that input, what this will do is sort of, we'll just steal some code from here. So this is my front end, this is my back end. They coexist, which is great. So I can just take this entire thing and plop it here. Let's see what the errors are. So it needs a secret, so I can access my env here, which is happening on the back end, so it's fine to do. I already have the timeout, so let's get rid of this. We have our key. This needs some input, so I can just get this line here and access it over here. So input has the prompt that we just defined. And I'll just trim it and slice it so that, nothing bad can happen. Uh, Up next, this needs to return some response that our front end can consume. So let's say if this happens correctly, we can get this response and sort of return, or we can just get some code from here instead of typing it out ourselves. And return the data. So one quick TypeScript thing that I really like is if you have an API that you don't control and you're fairly certain it's going to stay the same way, what I like to do is just call it in like a curl, like just access it somehow, do a curl request or whatever, and whatever response you get, you can use it as your like type completion thing. So if I do data dot, it'll just tell me like what all is available, which is super convenient. All right, that looks. Is everyone following so far? I just like copied some code from my front end and put it in my back end. That's all I've done. Right? And that's pretty much what I had before. And let's also just make sure we fix our syntax. Let's just get this. And if something like OpenAI crashes, we'll just return null, which is probably fine. Cool. So that's all the TRPC side of things. How do you access this function in the front end, right? Like that's the interesting bit, in my opinion. So you have something called API that you get from this library. So you can do something like API dot, and let's make sure we've imported API, which gives you our post sort of router, which I just showed you. It gives you this function called ask GPT, and this function sort of has something called a use mutation hook. How many of you used React query? Show of hands. Nice. So this is just React query, nothing new. So you can do const chat GPT equals this. This is your mutation hook. Now you can do something like chat GPT dot mutate async, await this thing. This gives you some data, and this expects a prompt. So this will just be our input. Let's make sure the spellings are right. And if the data exists, we'll just set that to the output. And hopefully this makes sense. So I had like this secret thing here, which was sort of my open API key string. Now I don't need this anymore. So like it's not part of my source code anymore. Let's save it here. Make sure Expo knows we've updated the app. And now, with any luck, it should still work the same way. Everything will work out well. So that's the idea. That's how simple it is to like write backends. It's just defining functions that you can access on the front end. You don't have to do like Kubernetes to like scale, which we'll come to in a second, which is a huge gripe I have with people and backends in general. But you don't have to do anything fancy to like, I have to define my API in this way and like do this, and then only I can like, be called a backend developer. None of that. Cool. So that fairly worked out. Demos are hard. I had like backup slides because what if things don't work out, which they did. So I'm glad. Um, Plus, did I mention that you also get a Next.js website that shares the same backend when you're using Create T3 Turbo? So if you were building like an OpenAI based React Native application with this template or boilerplate or whatever you want to call it, it also ships with an entire website that you can use and code share your backend with. So if you're building a website out, perfect. If you're not, it's completely fine. Um, why I'm excited about this is since this is a monorepo, we're using Next.js as our backend. How many of you've used Next.js? Show of hands. Fairly few of you here, right? And Next sort of is a backend framework which people argue about, uh, debate for another day, but it also ships with like cool things like Prisma, TRPC, Tailwind, all things that I hope like the React community really likes. So coming to Kubernetes and deployment, right? Since it's all serverless, there is no long living servers. You can just execute one command and have a long, like have just, your backend deployed, nothing to worry about. And it's extremely scalable. So like virtually limitless scale right from starting out. No DevOps needed. I hate DevOps because I don't know how to do DevOps. And it's fairly cheap. So with Lambdas, you get 100 GB hours per month for free. Each request takes like fraction of a second, hopefully. So like it's fairly cheap. Um, but you can get this one level forward or like one step up, which is you can move your backend to the edge, which is something you can do fairly trivially if you spend time, and this becomes even faster and cheaper because there's no data access, there's no DB, so you can like call things closer to the user. So this is both faster, and since edge functions are incredibly cheap, so you can get like 500,000 execution units per month for free without having to pay for anything, which is great. And you can code share. So shout out to GeekyAnts if you're using something like Solito and Native Base, which these guys develop. You can code share between web and mobile. So you can have like one code base which builds out to web, mobile, which is Android, iOS, and also like backend, which sort of coexists with your like one repo that you have to maintain, and everything just is type safe and everything's great. Again, huge shout out to Julius for creating this project. It's incredible, like the level of detail these guys have put in to making things really easy to understand and really easy to use is just phenomenal. And that's pretty much all I have for today. So thank you so much for your time. The idea is to sort of inspire you to like write backend code and not be intimidated. So like make cool things, inspire other people. Follow me on Twitter if you want. That's all I have. Thank you so much. Any questions? Um, yes and no. So I would say the bottleneck would be your service, which is sort of computing this, which is running sort of this AI service. So in this case, it would be OpenAI, which would be limited by like, maybe half a second of response time. Your backend should be like 60, 100 milliseconds of an average response time. And you can make it even faster with, Edge, because Lambdas have a problem of cold starts. So you might see like 300 millisecond response times. But if you go to the edge, you can get even faster than that. So it's like fairly snappy. Let's see. How fast is the edge? And this might not work, but let's just see. It's fairly responsive, right? Like it's running on the back end right now, so which is hopefully that answers your question. Anything else? Yes. Mhm. Correct. Okay. That works, but my idea is that what if it's in memory and someone can access your device memory while the code is executing? There is a possibility of hacking it. It's incredibly difficult. I am not like disagreeing, but it's just easier to not have the key be exposed to the front end. That's the idea. Like, even if you have a key exchange, if your key is getting sent to the front end at some point, it exists in the front end in some capacity, right? No, so the request goes to the backend. The backend signs the request or adds the key, sends the sends the request to your AI service, let's say OpenAI, gets back the response. There is no key anymore. Takes the response and gives it back to the front end. So the front end never sees the key. Okay, so that's a good question. So the idea is that right now, with sort of what I've shown you, like in a 10-minute demo, every request makes it forward. Like the backend doesn't really check each request, but it's fairly trivial to set up authentication. So in here, you have something called a public procedure. You also have something called an authenticated procedure, which you can define if this request, if this user exists in your database, for example, only then you can make the request. You wouldn't authenticate with an OpenAI key. You would authenticate with like some like a OAuth key, right? Which is fine, like which is not very expensive to like redo. Like it wouldn't give you like a $1,000 bill per month to sort of do this. Then we're sort of arguing that OAuth is not safe, which again, like everyone's using OAuth, like it's fairly safe. Yeah, you can only, if there's a door, you can only put a fat lock. But my idea is just hide the door, like don't even show the door. Yes, please. That's what CSR does, right? Like you sort of have this key pair, which you have a private key which signs each request. Um, yeah, so like it's fairly secure. Like that at that point, we're worrying about like more things than sort of leaking your API secrets. Like this is very easy to get wrong. That's why I wanted to like sort of talk about it, and it's easy to fix. So like, all right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ekaansh, for the great talk, great insights, and yeah, I agree that we keep OpenAI our expensive keys in our backend, and we worry about our backend security at separate time. And then it can be a separate discussion what backend security we can put. There can be n number of ways which you can do. I think you're getting a call in your phone. Anyways, so for our next speaker, we have Saurabh, not the ex-president of BCCI, the software engineer in GeekyAnts. Just I would ask for some time of yours so I can set up, and he would be the hybrid speaker today, and he'll be speaking about to interfaces and beyond, reimagining the command user interface and reimagining the search bar in our applications. So yeah, please spare us some time. Let us get him connected. So we are all set up, and I'll ask you guys to welcome him again. Please welcome our first hybrid speaker for today, and he would be the last speaker. As I mentioned, he'd be speaking about reimagining command line interface, reimagining the interface of our apps, and reimagine basically the search bar and the impact of AI on that. I would welcome Saurabh. Saurabh, please take the stage, and yeah, please welcome him. You can get started, Saurabh.
Am I on the screen, Neeraj? Hello. Okay. Yeah. So hi everyone. Welcome to the event. Welcome to GeekyAnts. Hope you're having a great time in our office. Hope you're having a great time in Bangalore. Uh, I will get started with the who I am. My name is Saurabh Ganguly. I work here at GeekyAnts as a React Native developer, as a software engineer, and you can. Okay. Yes, you can follow me on most of the platforms as I Saurabh Ganguly. I write as I Saurabh Ganguly, and on Twitter I go by I am Saurabh Ganguly. So you can follow me there as well, and we should connect. Well, the topic was for today was integration of React Native or any application with the AI implementation. So the query I have and what I want to talk about in under to influence and beyond to interface and beyond command user interfaces with AI, can we simplify how users interact instead of adding another layer of AI model on top of it, or something like I think this is something like the speaker just before me spoke about. Could we just chat with the backend so that the data or API is secure in the backend itself? But when I think about that, a query does come in mind where people are thinking of and futurizing the concept of VR or AR. Would command user interface be an option? We'll discuss about that. But to start with, I do have a problem. I am looking for an apartment. Let's say a 2 BHK apartment. To expand on that query, I need a 2 BHK apartment, spacious, let's say large windows, higher floor above the ground level, and somewhere close within the walking distance from my place of commute. Now, when you see that, that's 5 layers of filters. But now, how do I explain this to the existing applications we already have? Imagine this, right? Um, Such an application has full filters on itself, like what type of the apartment and price range and number of bedrooms. But that comes up with 2,180 results, right? Now, how do you explain if it had larger windows and more spacious, or if it had any other amenities? Now, unless you go through each of the pictures and search from them out of the 2,000 results. Now, such an application does take the basic necessities it needs. For example, a location where a city could be your neighborhood or proximity for your office, for example, near to Geeky Ants, or the size of the apartment, square foot, number of bedroom, or in terms of bathroom, if possible. Also, the price range. Could it the minimum price range and the maximum price range, and in between, what do you want exactly? But then I guess theoretically that is enough. But what about there are more necessities I would need? For example, what about the public transport? Like I want to be in a place which is near to the metro bus station, and I don't want to be in a place which is where cab drivers would cancel my ride because they'll not get a ride returning back home. Or how about what are the facilities when there are no electricity? Or does it have a coverage of broadband coverage of my preferred network, or a safe is the society safe from flooding, and so on? Also, if you have a family, does it have a school nearby, or a wheelchair accessibility, or ground floor options, pet friendly parking, and a lot more? Um, to be honest, the backend does have all of this data. Well, and the owners also provide this kind of data during the listing process. But the blockage is where how do I interact what I have, what I want to the application itself. Also, apart from this, there are more kinds of data, such as the house owner during the listing is also providing such kind of data in the description itself. For example, they have provided that they have huge kitchens, two refrigerators, two ovens, and two sinks. I don't know how important is that information, but also they have provided they are providing wireless internet throughout the property. But I don't think I could search any of those details into this, something like this, where the search bar is only used for what is the location where I want the property to be. So what I have been working on is a quest for a simpler interface to get the information from the backend as and what I want, right? And not just create an application which is just a catalog of information, 2000 results. Now, if an application could have 1 lakh results, but what I need is actually one. And can we simplify layers of navigation, complex components, or dedicated um, bridging screens? For example, any of the my cart, my order, which I'll be discussing in the next slide, but also any of these which even in the bridging screens, such complex components are again and again updated and removed from the layers. For example, when I go to Amazon and I have to search for my latest order, so this is the basic process and a normal process a person would go. You have to click here on your profile, you go to your orders, you get list of almost 3 months of data. I don't know why, but for what I ordered just now, and then you get the details of your order. Again, you have to select about the details from the drop down itself. So my solution is basically inspired by the terminal. Once you have used the terminal, you are used to the terminal, right? And imagine if you could command an application to do for a certain things. Uh, yeah, like honestly, if you could command an application to do a certain things, right? That would be a lot more simple. But then Saurabh, how do I implement that onto this? There are many number of applications right here, which are microservices, micro front ends. And how do I create this into a chatbot? Are you saying chatbot? Well, to be honest, how about this search bar? It stays just there. One time you use it is for searching for a catalog, which again, as I said, shows you a lot more. But then how about pulling this search bar down up to at this point, where your application front end or home screen acts as a place where you keep adding parameters to filter out your content that is being displayed to you. So basically pulling that search bar down to the bottom. And this is not a new concept. Applications like this has been applied in concepts in iOS 15, where Apple has pulled down the search bar towards the bottom of the screen in Safari. And this is a good idea, actually. Um, why have the most likely search result on the top of the screen and most unlikely search result which is closer to my thumb? So search is not a one-time thing. You would keep improving queries again and again, right? And also, when you push something like this into ChatGPT, and I'm not putting this up to say what ChatGPT could be doing, but if you see when I put a statement onto ChatGPT, I can apply 4 to 5 filters as I want and not select it from a series of filters and multiple choice questions. You could have 4 filters, someone could have 40, right? But the assistance is not limited to filters. Um, Imagine you walk into a restaurant and apart from searching for a specific dish, if you could search for more questions like what is the special for today and what is the recommendation of the application or the recommendation of the chef, and then ingredients in the dish, if the dish is vegetarian, vegan, gluten free, so on. And all of these applications could be accessed by the search bar itself. Now, this is also a common phenomena where I spend more time searching for what you want to eat. Although the application has 1,000 of options, I do not search for more kitchens, food items, and neither do I remember any more food item names of any more food items. For example, what is the when you had a hunger for South Indian, what is the last time you went on to when you had the hunger for South Indian? When is the last time you went on to why the 90% of the time you went on for idli or dosa, right? But the suggestions do not end here. Um, but the suggestions do not end here. Imagine an application like Blinkit, where apart from searching for items, which itself takes 20 minutes and delivery takes 10, um, could I ask for something more? Like create me a party basket for a get together that I have tonight, or something like could I have based on or if Blinkit, something like Blinkit could uh, filter out content on what I buy every month and suggest a grocery list. That would, I think, that is a great concept of how ChatGPT could be chat or any language model could be used to increase a business model. Now, such a model would not be useful for applications like this, right? Um, Applications in this manner would are mostly used for they earn the more time they spend on the application we spend on the application, but such an application would be use of a chat bar would be used in, for example, uh, in quick service applications, right, where you ask a question and you get an answer rather than browsing through a catalog of products. Not everything has to be manufactured at social media where you browse through a catalog of images. But the idea, you might feel, is very similar to what chatbots already do. We do have seen a success in that field so far, but and if you say that, I do acknowledge it. But by far, organizations have created very simple and smaller applications, and they also did not have a lot of investments. And also, applications have been third-party, smaller organizations providing it. Now, Sam Altman says that although many app companies could be building such an application, but there would be many companies who are actually smaller organizations, and their product would be a layer two for them. For example, companies like Salesforce and Air India have been using ChatGPT as a chatbot system, and Air India has also, I think, initial investment of 200 million dollars into such a project. So you see how chat is slowly being getting involved into the development of an application or using an application for the end user. Now you could feel such an application. Okay, that is a great imagination. If I could talk on what I need and keep using the chat as a filter of what I keep adding the parameters or to filter out what exactly I need. And how does that exactly work? Well, when you get into the artificial intelligence or get into the language models, just such a statement can be divided into multiple parts. Your language model does that for you, dividing the statement into multiple parts, and then for example, here it would create an intent of the application that you want to create a basket of products for a specific location. And what is a basket of products? Your model would know that this is a collection of items. And what is the time? It would be for tonight. And then there could be a recommendation model in the backend itself, which will work as um, what is the age group of the person, which defines what is the user data, and what is the product, which defines what is the item, and then the user item interface. Now, example, if now for to give you how this, imagine if your search bar could keep adding parameters to your data. So you keep adding circles here, and your search results keeps decreasing more and more. Now, to imagine how intent and entity works, you can look onto how things work. For example, what is the weather, where you intent, it can define the intent and entity. You can define the intent and entity, what for what things to be done in Bangalore, and so on. For example, you have a statement like, I want to travel to Europe in June. What are some of the affordable destinations uh, with good weather and cultural attractions? If I could do that to a super app like Make My Trip, which books my trains, buses, and all of my hotel destinations, imagine the Imagine you do not have to create an application which is very simple in that case. It does not only have to provide me the basics, it does not even have to provide me the basics where just flight booking or hotel management or transportation booking. It could provide me a lot more applications like tour booking, scheduling, restaurants based on what I have had before, budgeting options, culture information guiding, packaging suggestions, emergency, social media, and a lot more. That was I think I was nervous. That was quick, but yeah, that is up to my idea. And thank you so much. I had a great time explaining.
And if anyone has any questions for Saurabh, please go ahead and ask. But before that, I'd like to tell all the online audience that if you have any questions for Saurabh or for any speaker, for the fact, please put it on the chat so we can take it here and we can take it for our speakers who have spoken before or to the Saurabh. So, anyone has any questions to be asked with the latest speaker, Saurabh? No? Okay. So, we'll have a short round of panel discussions with. Okay, sorry. Yeah, please go ahead.
So, do we have I like the idea of making AI to AI use as search engine, but do we have to train the AI for our own application or our own database to work like that?
Okay. So, Saurabh, here's a question for you. There's an audience with us
Okay.
who likes the idea of having AI on our applications, but he wants to know if we have to train the AI to be specific for our application and the data of our application.
Okay. If you see an AI like like your Chat GPT is not exactly a yeah, an AI like Chat GPT is not exactly an AI that can do everything that you need. It's a natural language processing model. So when you explain it what you want to do, it is just responsible for taking the response from the user, dividing it into what are the intent and extent of a user, what they were exactly. That is the intent recognition system of it. And then you could use recommendation system algorithms that are actually based onto your applications. For example, the Spotify or anything that has that has recommendation systems on what next music you could be liking or others could be liking. Now, if do you have to have such an recommendation system? Well, not exactly. If ChatGPT could tell you what is the intent of the user, for example, you're asking what is the weather in Bangalore, and give that to me in Celsius, right? The intent of the user is what is the weather, and they want to know the location is Bangalore and the unit is Celsius. So imagine how does an API look like, where you keep adding the variables towards the endpoint, and that becomes and you could send that to an API that is already present for the usability. Uh, I hope that answers.
Yeah, sure, but how can we train that AI for specifically for our data sets?
Uh, he would like to ask how can he train the AI for specifically for our dataset.
Then you have to train I think then there is a system called the recommendation system algorithms where you keep putting data, where you keep, and then there are different methods like the content based models where the AI gets. So I think I shared a screenshot, slide on that where the AI gets trained on things like a user, what does the user want, what is the data about the user, and what does other user related to the same data, for example, the age or the location are looking for, and also what does uh, anything related to content based algorithm, anything uh, related to okay, how does anything like for example a music is it a Hindi music related, is it in the Hindi genre or in the English genre or anything, so based on what the user needs and what does the music have. These are different things that create data points onto the graph. Now, wherever the graph conflicts and intersects, that is the point where which is the right data point for the for that specific user. I think that would take a long discussion on how that works.
Just you reach out to Saurabh on Twitter and get the
Sure,
conversation
sure, sure.
started.
I would love to talk about the any learning models.
Cool. So next up, we have a short panel discussion. I would like to invite all the speakers we had today to the stage. Along with Arindam, we have Arindam with us, who's working as engineering manager in GeekyAnts. Please join me on the stage. And anyone who has any questions for our speakers, please go ahead and you can ask. They will be able to answer. Okay. So first up, we have a question for Ekaansh from the chat. And is this a good option for a small MVP?
This is a great option for a small MVP. I mean, I'm a huge fan for like starting with the TC stack for like small things, experiment, see if you like it, and then scale it up. Yeah, 100%. The answer is yes.
To be honest, I did not know about ERC before, and I think that's a great way to start. And I think it's more specifically goal towards the MVP, and then obviously you can go ahead, start scaling up, maybe buy a subscription and get started. But yeah, great because you don't need any development. You don't need to worry about defining your rules, defining your interfaces, and anything like that. So yeah, okay. So before I have some questions for our panel, but before I get started, I would like to ask all of you if you have any questions for our panel. And it does not need to be only related to the talks we have. You can ask anything related to React Native. Please go ahead. Anyone? Yeah, please.
I have a general question. So, when you use Expo, right? So, with Expo, we have some issues while handling native adjustment into security. So, with security, I mean that if say the app, the client wants that the app should be secure enough so that we can have like how does Netflix does, right? Whenever you take a screenshot, it blacks out the screen, and it doesn't allow you to take the screenshot in Android. And iOS, it blacks out the screen, and it has some compliance with the iOS itself. So can we do that something in a regular Expo app? We want to do that.
And the question is generally towards security and export. And he gave a great example that there are some apps which stop you from taking a screenshot in the application. He wants to know the general security concerns towards Expo and if that particular use case is possible with Expo.
I'll take it. Um, Especially now with Expo modules API, what you can sort of do is you can define like a view. So it could be something like a React Native view, like you can call it secret view or like secure view, and you can inject like some Swift code or Kotlin code which sort of takes care of, which can access your like native device event like of taking a screenshot and sort of render a black screen, right? So that should be possible. Like you can pretty much do anything with
But
Expo.
in native iOS, it doesn't allow. So in native iOS, there's an actual bug in iOS that it only emits the event of it lets you know that the screenshot has been taken, but you can't perform an action after that. So there is something called in say Snapchat, it lets you know that the screenshot has been taken, but it lets you take the screenshot because it can't stop you from taking the screenshot. But what is the
Maybe you can just overwrite the screenshot after the fact.
but there is no way to do that.
If that's a device limitation, there's not much Expo can help you with. But if it's like if something is possible in native, there's a very good chance you can do it with Expo. That's the general thing. General
I
norm.
think the general answer here is that we can inject any kind of Swift code we want in our React Native application. And if that is possible to do that through
Exactly.
iOS native code, it should be possible to do that. But by writing our own native plugins or native code, as far as we are aware of, maybe there's a plugin
Which
allows
might just
it.
exist, yeah.
Yeah,
If not, like you can write it.
yeah, but there should be a definite way to do that. If that can be done with native, it can be done with Expo, with React Native. And I think it's not necessarily with Expo, right? So in any of the corresponding native platforms, you can go ahead and set the flags, right? So for example, in Android, it's just a simple flag I remember, which will disable taking from the screenshot.
In Android, it prevents the
Right.
screenshot.
I think in native iOS also it's the same, right? So it's a kind of same, which you have to write it in your Swift code base. But I don't think so. I mean, Expo has a lot to deal with.
No, like I was looking at the example of Facebook. So in Facebook, if you lock the screen, right, like you have a profile of something, kind of thing. So that if you lock the profile, you will not be able to take a screenshot of that user's profile. So in Android, it works smoothly. But in iOS, it doesn't even black out the screen. So in iOS, it's a bug altogether. So do we have any kind of fix around it? Like if you guys know.
So every React Native app is pretty much like a native app, right? Like you have your native buttons and your native views. That's the whole point of writing React Native code. That the result that you get is very close to native or almost native in some instances. So if there's a platform limitation which does not allow you to do something, then that also gets carried
That's
forward.
what I'm asking. Like, do you guys know anything about it? Like, have you guys implemented any of the security patch around it?
Not
No, not. I mean, I can't come up with anything right now. But point being that, like, I agree with him, right? So if there is something on the native platform, uh, you don't sort of get a lot of, overwritten functionalities via React Native or by any other platform, I would say, right? So end of the day, like your code is getting decompiled in an IPA format, right? So which necessarily plays the vital role. But I'll look into it probably someday. Maybe you can tag us on a
Right.
post. You can also follow a community and reach out to the community team, so they can work. Yeah, these tag a community and we will definitely reply on that thread and we'll definitely try our implementation and we'll let you know if we succeed and even if we not, we will let you know. Cool. Thank you for your question. Anyone who has any questions for our panel? No? Yeah, please go ahead.
Any super ways where the ad. Even you can comment on that. What are the good things? I mean, obviously it's super easy to use. It almost looks too good to be true. So what are the mistakes?
So I tried it out once, but I am a huge fan of Firebase. I personally am a huge fan of Firebase. So
That's no SQL analysis.
correct. Plus, my most of the I mostly used to work on personal projects with Flutter. So Flutter and Firebase integration was way more easier for me. So like since my college days, I started with Firebase. Superbase came late, so I just tried experimenting with it. But I personally prefer Firebase.
My answer would be the same. Firebase came first. We got acclimatized with Firebase, our responses, and everything else. Even though most of the things were free before and it's paid to still
Yeah, but still, I mean, a lot of applications can be configured the right way to, work with the current limitations. So I think it works perfectly fine for small scale products and everything.
So the answer here is that not a lot of experience with
Yeah, okay.
Firebase.
I've heard a lot of good things about Superbase. Like, I think you brought out a key point that's different, right? Like, with Firebase, it's NoSQL. With Superbase, you have like a Postgre or like a SQL based thing. So, I think it really depends on what your requirement is. If you have like a really structured, like strict data that you want to query, you might see more success with Superbase. So, I think yeah, I think just like there's a vendor lock-in with all of these services. So you need to understand what you're getting into. Like he mentioned, the pricing can be more expensive in some scenarios. So if you're okay with paying the price and sort of scaling that up, having a good like SQL sort of foundation to lay your app on will like really help if that's what's required by your application.
Anyone else who would like to ask any question for No? I have some set of questions which I would like to ask all of you. Let's go through that. So first, how to leverage AI to increase productivity in React Native development?
I have started using Copilot and it's just I can't go back anymore. It's just simple tasks, right? Like defining a state, and then instead of me having to type it out, it just figures out like what's supposed to go there. I think just tiny things like that improve productivity by a lot. Like I'm not asking it to like, hey, write a function to do this exact thing. It might not be able to do that right now, but just like monotonous writing things out.
But I think it is able to do that, right? Like if you write a comment on the description of the function, yeah, that will do that.
I haven't had much success with it. Like a hit or miss. Sometimes it's like really
Yeah.
like surprisingly accurate.
Accurate, otherwise
And
it
sometimes
was
just
like-
like oh, it doesn't even understand what I'm like asking it to do. So I think we started like having exposure to these tools is great. Trying them out, figuring out what's your like coding pattern. Like some people have hated the idea of like having things in their IDE, right? Like Vim users especially are complaining about I don't want anything. I don't even want like syntax highlighting. I just want to write code, which I can't understand. But that's how some people are. So I think it's really important to understand what you like, what you prefer. I've had like good experience with just not having to write things and it just figuring out like what needs to go where.
Anyone else? Yeah, I would say I mean it's something that you need to spend some time with it and learn the system, right? So it's same, right? Working with some new tech stacks, right? So for example, if I just ask my GPT-4 to write down an inter solution, maybe a custom backend solution which I'm writing in Hasura, right, and then a front end in React or React Native, it might not be able to give me the proper response. But then again, like say for example, if I'm searching something specific to problem statement, right, or maybe a static front end application, that is more precise, right, and a more valid solution that you get. So I would say personally, I mean, as of my experiences, it's also something new learning for us as well, right? So it's not something out of the box and it's ready to use for the from the day one, right? So the more time you spend with it, you get associated with the mental model, and that's how you also learn better. I mean, learn a better way to use AI or any other tool, right? Any other AI platform tool. So that's I think is like what I would say. Yeah, in our initial development days, we used to hear this a lot that right. Googling is a skill. Correct. So it's also the same thing. Yeah, I think now the prompting is going to be a skill, and I personally use it mostly for my mundane tasks. But like say, I need to change something in a very large code. wait me an hour, I can do that in a minute. I want to generate an array which will do something, or there are simple functions which I might take an hour to write, but if I can explain them very precisely, the AI would be able to do that. But I agree with you as well that that's hit and miss sometimes. And the more complex and the more rare we go, the hit and miss
The
ratio,
success rate.
yeah, that goes down basically. One more thing which I like to do is use Bing Chat because ChatGPT doesn't have access to internet. Bing does. So it just Googles for me. So if I write a prompt, it will translate into some other prompts which they should be better to understand, and then it would get a solution which the AI thinks is the best solution, and it would decide the sources like this is the stack of the link one, stack of the link two, and just a funny example, not technical. I asked it who will win the IPL this year. It said, I guess, RR, I don't remember. But the sources it mentioned was betting side and astrology side as well.
Right.
So, yeah, that's great.
So I would like to add, so if there is a voice assistant, if I say generate a use state with this and this variable, so I don't have to write it, right? I'm too lazy to write nowadays.
There
And
is actually.
yeah,
Please, on laptop, you only can access DBI for now in Edge browser.
so will it have it in VS Code extension or something? Like if I say something in that file?
No, because in GPT-4 is a technology which ChatGPT is using, and then the same tech is being used by Bing AI, which is only available on their browser and their Bing app for now. And I think Microsoft is doing a lot of things to leverage AI to gain popularity on their products. You can see GitHub.
I
You
think
can
they
see
started using their Bing AI with sheets and all this stuff.
yes, yes. I was coming to that. So you can use Dolly in your presentations now. So yeah,
See, that's the most exciting thing I feel like from the simple notion of Stack Overflowing things to coming to predictive and generative text where you just express what you're thinking and coming up with the search results. So I think that's where the most where it's moving towards, and that's a pretty exciting notion.
can I come this? What are the potential risks and ethical concerns you think with using AI in React?
Uh, Potential risks at React Native level is not something I'm very concerned about than compared to a job position I saw for a kill switch engineer at OpenAI, where they just launched that they're giving a salary of $500,000 to just flip the kill switch in case the computer's overturned. So, I mean, React Native at the React Native end with the only problem I can see is people getting habitual more towards it and not focusing more towards the basics. For example, there are very simple things. Even if you start leveraging OpenAI or any kind of AI tools to access legacy code bases, I don't which are built upon frameworks that depend upon companies to companies. To what extent would they be able to debug as an artificial intelligence, which is generally OpenAI context, versus you as a developer who has more insights on it. So that's something that I think might cause to a problem if everyone just gets habitual and just dependent upon it.
I think that's one, right? Like the people becoming less proficient at what they do, that's definitely there. But I think there's also two key buckets of problems. One is it's based on, like, it's learned from bad code that exists on GitHub. Not all of it is perfect, so it can suggest you like a function which isn't memoized, for example, in React. Like that's fairly common, right? Like you are not always looking for performance, especially when you're starting out and building an MVP, and that's most of the code of GitHub. So it's possible it might not give you the best possible code that you might be able to write better than someone suggesting that syntax. The second is it's also learned from potentially, you know, code that you shouldn't have access to, for example. So if I have, the GitHub, GitHub Chat GPT, whatever, what do you call it, Copilot, in my IDE, and I'm working on like a proprietary project for my employer, I am sort of exposing, it's possible I'm sort of exposing that that code base which it's training on. Like we again, they talk about not having not using your local data to train the AI, but there's only so much you can tell with the current state of like the whole black box approach of this is how this works and this is how it's trained, and you just like reaping the benefits. So there's always the ethical question of whose code base did this profit from, and shouldn't I get a part of the share of the subscription fees if it's trained on my database? So that I think that those are questions that we have like long debates on in the future.
I think that's a long debate because you could say that same for Google, and
100%.
they,
Like
it
it's
takes your data and benefits from that. I think it has from US. No, I don't find anything suspect. That's fine. Yeah, I guess I don't have any comments about the security concern because I can't really comment on that. About the proficiency, well, I think I learned C++ in school and I did not Google anything. So I never thought Googling something as a solution, and I thought if I Google the syntax, it would make me less proficient. But later on in the stage, I realized that it's up to me. If I Google something, I understand it completely, and then I integrate it in my application. That makes me no less proficient, but makes me more efficient. And that would be the same case for AI as well. We would, in future, we can get more precise code which might not be needed to be checked by us. But at the end of the day, it's going to be your code, it's going to be your PR, and it's just going to make it more efficient. It's
And
like
then
you have
writing
an
down
assistant
code
with
is
you.
not going nowhere, right? So you have to still write down code. You have to still, like think it
Yeah,
before getting. I mean,
it's
probably your
like
job might be a little bit easier,
uh,
but then I mean that manual, work is still there.
yeah. So it's like having an assistant who knows
Right.
things and can
Correct.
provide you with arbitrary info, but
Correct.
it's you who knows
Who
the
will decide?
context,
Right.
and it's you
Correct.
who is the expert on that particular tech which you're working on. So let's say if ChatGPT doesn't give you a memoized component, you make it. If it doesn't have use callbacks in a function and it's generating inside it, you make it basically. But it surely makes your job easier and makes you more efficient. Might be 2 days of work can be done in 2 hours sometimes. Any example which you would like to give on successful use case of using AI to develop better application or be more efficient developer?
I have two things that come to mind, which I was sort of going to talk about in the last question, but this nicely carries on to this answer. One is I was trying to sort of apply a WebGL filter on media on like the web, and it was the first time I was sort of like getting into like what is the best way to do this, and it was a hacky side project. I wanted to apply like a filter on my webcam, so I didn't care about the production quality of this code. I just wanted to get it done and see if it's possible. So I just asked like ChatGPT like what's this is what I want to do. This is the code I have. Can you make it more efficient? And it was fairly successful. Like it figured out that hey, this function is called on each frame. You probably don't want to do this. So it like picked it out and like made it more efficient and like rewrote it,
Yeah,
which is great.
I can see the future where leaders are using AI and telling you that.
It was
Right.
yeah, it was the reasons out like I think this needs to happen because of this, which is really helpful. You can like decide, oh, this is probably not relevant. This makes sense, and I do this change. That's one, so that was great. On the counter side, I asked it like a simple reactive question, gave me like class syntax, which I wouldn't want to maintain, if that's my PR. So that's also like a potential.
So with legacy code, it's optimization itself. Like you don't someone else wrote it, and you don't want to spend much time on it. You put it in ChatGPT, it gives you documentation, and it's a successful use case. I like the suggestions of it, and I use them.
I think for me, like it is majorly documentation part of it, right, where it has helped me a lot. Like I literally had to spend 30 minutes every day, and right now I just sit once in a week, and then I can prepare the entire weeks of documentation. So that is something I'll personally vouch for.
I'll tell you my latest use case. Let's say I had a tip where every children has to be of the same height as the tallest children. And the obvious solution I thought was maybe adding a variable calculating the tallest children and adding the height to the people. I would not go into very deep, but it created problem when I was synthesizing this video. I just asked ChatGPT and told me just do a line item, stretch, and it would work. So there are a lot of things, mainly styling. We spend a lot of time debugging that and trying things out, which AI can do for us. And there are a lot of use cases, and I'm sure we'll come up with more use cases as the more we use the tech together. Okay. Uh, I would come to my last question. What role do you see AI playing in React Native development future?
I think it's really important to understand that we're just starting out. Like it's been a few months since we're all sort of getting excited about AI. We've seen tremendous improvement, and I just am excited for the future. Like 5 years later, like what this would be able to do. Like so, it's hard to predict the future of what extent this will be able to help in the developer's life cycle. So I would like do a comment that I'll like probably age like milk in a couple months. But yeah, I'm definitely super excited to see how things evolve from here.
No one is, no one knows what's going to be the future of AI. And I don't think any of our opinion are going to age like mine.
100%.
Yeah. That's it. Anyone?
Yeah, I think let's wait and watch, right? So the other point is, I believe it is gonna be, of course, a better tech partner for you as a developer, right? Who writes code and who makes solutions. But then, how better partner it would be, that depends on, again, like on a lot of factors, right? For that you have to wait and watch. The other thing is, yeah, I mean, earlier like we used to use Stack Overflow, right? Or we used to simply Google it out. So probably there you would be using, some more powerful AI tool, which will be able to guide you in a better way. But then again, that depends. So I would say it might be a good tech partner for you.
So with the Chat GPT released in November or something, right? So from then till now, the use cases are growing like a lot. Like
This is
with
just the
yeah,
beginning.
within a year, I guess it will do up 70% of our work in React Native at least. So
The more percentage of work it
yeah,
can do,
it's
the more work we will be able to do.
Right.
Unless it's not able to do
Correct.
110% of work, we are safe.
I think we should write CSS.
But then one thing again, I fundamentally believe, right? Like I see a lot of uh, scary news nowadays about losing their jobs and all. So for developers, I would like to say, like, sit down, relax, right? Learn the things in a better way. You are not gonna lose your job ever, because you are the only one from whom end of the day GPT or any other computers is gonna pick up the solutions from.
Yes,
So
yes.
so relax for that.
I would say, again, I don't mean it in a very negative way, but if, if you think AI can replace you,
Yeah.
maybe you're not right.
That's not right. Yeah. And the same thing happened. Let's say, for example, when WordPress came in, or these no-code platforms came in, everyone the developers' job was gonna get fired, right? But then that did not happen, right? Over the years, a lot of new frameworks came in, and then the demand of the developers, which expected was in the late 2000 or something, it has grown tremendously, right? So I think that's something magnificent, which the tech is evolving, and like the manual work or the learning curve will be there throughout. So nothing to worry about that.
Yeah, let's end it on a note that AI is
Yeah.
going to be the best
It's
tech of
right.
development, not the
It's
worst.
it's the best tech partner probably you
So,
can.
especially being part of the JS ecosystem, everything changes every week.
Right.
Like, there are new frameworks coming in, new libraries coming in. Yeah, we will fine. It's a good.
No, even for mobile, right? Like if you look at the last 10 years how the mobile ecosystem evolved, it's a lot of technologies going in and out, right? Cordova, Ionic, Xamarin, I remember, right? I personally coded at Xamarin. Nowadays, like you won't find
I
anyone.
would never want to
Yeah,
write.
nowadays you won't
Xamarin
find
ever
anyone
again.
to code in Xamarin, right? So and then the bundle size, like the app, like APK used to get like 3x larger. I still remember. So then from there we are
He
using.
was the initial bundle size for.
Yeah, I worked it in around 2014, 15, I remember. 15, 16 probably. So it is pretty new.
I was unlucky enough to work on PhoneGap in 2018.
I worked on Ionic.
Okay. So yeah, let's just wrap this up. And as I mentioned, unless the clients can explain everything precisely to AI, AI is not replacing anyone. And I just have one complaint with you.
Yeah.
That the answer to universe should have been 42,
right?
nothing else.
That happened when I was preparing the demo, but yeah, you can't trust me.
The question is, what's the answer to life,
Life, universe, and everything. Yeah.
So next time you're demoing
I'll
this,
type it properly
this
next
question. And on that funny reference, thank you everyone for joining us on this meetup for React Native and AI. And we will have more of this in future, and I hope you will join us then as well. I hope you all will be there, and see you all next time. Thank you, and have a nice evening.